What is going on, FA Nation? John Impemba here with Eric Romoff. It is week 3 of the NFL season. Thursday Night Football Preview Live is here. Patriots Jets on the docket. Another AFC East matchup here on Thursday Night Football. Eric, my buddy, how we doing, man?
We're doing good. Now that I'm here my third week on this Thursday night preview show, I figured it's time for me to step into the studio, kind of get acclimated to the Fantasy Alarm office. So pumped to be here in the virtual studio and pumped to be back here live on a Thursday night.
Yeah, you got the virtual studio. I haven't. I guess my green screen didn't flip over to it, so I'm kind of duping our background here. But I'll work my way through that on the show. Yeah, we got some football to talk about here tonight. We're gonna have you guys set your lineups. We appreciate all of you that are tuning in. I'm going to go give the old X a retweet here as well to give a shout to everybody over there. Let them know that we're live here. If you guys can hit that like, hit that share, hit that subscribe button. It's a free way to support the work we do here over at Fantasy Alarm. We got the live chat popping up on the screen there as well. So you guys throw some questions at us. We'll help you guys with your DFS lineups, your showdown lineups. If you're doing pick'em games over on Underdog, Sleeper, or Prize Picks, we can help you out there as well. But let's just kind of get into some of the top news stories here of the day and of the week, really. Obviously, the injury reports are always the big to-do about. In Houston, Joe Mixon not practicing now back-to-back weeks. He kind of had like the hip drop tackle done on him this past week. Damian Pierce is missing practice with a hamstring injury. Are we looking at a Cam Akers start this week for Houston?
Probably a little too soon to say that, right? I'm a bit more concerned about Damian Pierce's availability than Joe Mixon. It sounds like the hip drop tackle or the resulting injury from it isn't quite as serious as once feared. And also, we're sitting here at a point where we're only 2 days into practice, right? If we're looking at another DNP tomorrow, obviously all of the alarm bells start to go up. But I mean, even if it gets back to limited tomorrow, I think he'll probably be on track to play.
Other notable here today, George Kittle not practicing for San Francisco. They're already going to be without Deebo Samuel. Of course, we know that there's no Christian McCaffrey here. Thoughts on the 49ers and their matchup? Obviously, they have a matchup against the Rams. The Rams missing all of their top players, essentially. There, no Cooper Kupp, no Puka Nacua this week. Where do you think they go at San Francisco? Is just going to end up being a big Jordan Mason, Brandon Ayuk day, or what do we think here?
Yeah, what's old is new again. I think we're going to see a lot of Jordan Mason as we have through 2 weeks of the season. But also, we've got guys like Juwan Jennings and some other depth pieces on the 49ers that can and have filled in admirably when their number has been called previously, right? So don't think that we're looking at necessarily any kind of floor game for this offense. Kyle Shanahan and that roster have been able to put up points really regardless of who they've been missing. And if nothing else, this game should be one that is hyper chalky from a DFS standpoint, given how many underpriced and value players there are available across the two teams.
In Seattle, Kenneth Walker still not practicing, dealing with the injury that he's got going on here. We saw Zach Charbonnet obviously lead the backfield last week, but it was primary DK Metcalf and JSN doing the damage. They're home. They're facing Miami this week. It looks like Skylar Thompson is going to be their quarterback. We saw Raheem Mostert return to practice here. Any concerns in that game?
I mean, the passing offense for Miami obviously has to be downgraded a bit. I don't think that we go out and just outright avoid those players, but I think we have to be realistic about where their ceiling lies without Tua Tagovailoa under center, and that's markedly lower than it was before. But still plenty talented guys. We've seen both Waddle and Tyreek Hill perform very well when Tua has missed time in the past. So, not exactly a sky is falling situation for the Dolphins offense. Really like how this sets up for the Dolphins runners, right? We know that they like to deploy 2, 3, 5, 10 running backs in a given game. Right. So there'll definitely be plenty of carries to go around for the likes of Devon Achane and that crew. And on the Seattle side, really, really encouraging week 2, right? My hope with Grubbs coming into that offense is that we would see them get a bit more vertical. We saw a lot of that last week, so I'm hoping that's a sign of things to come.
Yeah, they've obviously thrown the ball a ton. I mean, we saw over 40 pass attempts last week from Geno Smith in a game that was 43 total points, rather low scoring. So, maybe in a spot where if Kenneth Walker was active, they would have been more likely to run the ball a bit more. But encouraging that they're willing to just kind of unleash Gino there and throw the football. So James Grindley's got a full injury report. He updates that on Friday, so make sure you check that out tomorrow when the news comes out from the Friday practice reports. As we say, those are certainly the more important ones. If guys don't get at least a limited Friday practice, their odds of playing on Sunday drop pretty dramatically there. For the Thursday night football game, though, tonight we have the New England Patriots versus the New York Jets. First time these two teams have met in 20 plus years, where it hasn't been Tom Brady or Bill Belichick on the other side of the field for New England here. New England's coming off of that loss against Seattle. They had the lead late, blew the lead in regulation, then had the ball in overtime, wasn't able to get anything done, ended up losing to the field goal. The Jets pick up their first win. Aaron Rodgers' first win as a member, getting his first win as a member of the Jets. How do you see this game playing out here tonight?
Yeah, I think even though we're missing some of the Hall of Fame faces from at least the Patriots side of this matchup, I think we're going to see kind of a classic Patriots Jets game on Thursday night, right? Like fairly low scoring, a bit of a rock fight, a lot of possessions and a lot of field position battles. Really just kind of slowly matriculating their way down the field. So. This is my way of saying that I think we're probably looking at a game where the under comes in, a very low under of 38.5. And I do think that this will be close. So anytime that's the case, generally err on the side of the team getting points here.
Yeah, I was a little surprised that it was at 6.5 here. Jets home
with such
favorites.
A low total.
Low total, 6.5. Yeah, I kind of feel like the way the Patriots and really both of these teams have been running their offenses, right? Like a lot of kind of slow running game oriented and kind of let their defense do the work. We haven't seen Aaron Rodgers throw over 30 passes in either game yet, which is kind of significant because his passing attempts prop was set at 30 and 31.5, depending on where you've been looking at it here. And it doesn't seem like this would be a shootout that would lend to Aaron Rodgers dropping back 35 times in this game. So, kind of like the under on the Aaron Rodgers pass attempts here, but it's certainly in on both running backs. Breece Hall, obviously, and then Ramondre Stevenson, another 20 plus carries for him last week. And it just seems like that's the way the Patriots offense wants to do things right here. So that game again, 38.5 total. I'm with you there. It feels like we could certainly be seeing the under come to play here. And then the 6.5 points, I'm going to go with New England getting the 6.5 there. So we certainly, again, appreciate all you guys. If you have any questions, throw them in the comment section. We'll help you out. MMA Play is saying he loves Thursdays. Albert saying hello to everybody. MMA commenting on the Saturday practices being the thing. Yeah, I mean, Friday, Saturday, they don't get any sort of limited walkthroughs there. Kind of the big deal. Angie wants to know, would you flex Stevenson or ETN this week?
Well, I guess there's a two-part answer here. If we were to go Stevenson's route, we certainly don't want to flex him because he's playing tonight on Thursday. Right. There's our obligatory don't flex your Thursday player reminder.
Right, yeah.
Technically, for me, I have Travis Etienne a whole one spot ahead of Ramondre Stevenson. So, I'm pretty strict when it comes to following the rankings that I put together. So Etienne would get the nod for me, but ultimately, I feel like you're splitting hairs between the two.
Yeah, some people were obviously concerned with like the Bigsby role in the way he got to work in week one and Stevenson's volume, but this is such a tough, we think tough matchup, right? I mean, Tony Pollard had success last week. We saw obviously Jordan Mason have the success in week one. Is the Jets defense maybe a bit overrated to what people thought they would be coming into the season, especially when it comes to their run defense?
Specifically with regard to their run defense, right? That is definitely the Achilles heel of this defensive side of the ball for the Jets. I wouldn't say that it's problematic or even near or below league average, right? But when the expectation was that this was going to be one of the the most stout units from top to bottom in all of the NFL, and one of them is a little bit disappointing, it stands out like a sore thumb, right? So
yeah.
Definitely not living up to the expectation, but not something that I think is, prone to being, taken advantage of on a week in and week out basis.
For sure. Am I crazy to start Garrett Wilson over Rashee Rice? I mean, Rashee Rice has the Atlanta Falcons, so obviously he's going to have at least a little bit of a tough coverage here, but where are you on New England here with Garrett Wilson when we just saw, kind of differing performances, right? In week 1, they shut down Cincinnati. How much of that was just Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow not being on the same page because he had held out all week? Because in week 2, DK Metcalf goes for 10. JSN goes off for a big game here. Are you playing Garrett Wilson over Rice on Thursday Night Football here?
Ideally, I'd like to try to find a way to play both of these players.
Yeah. What does the rest of your wide receiver room look like there?
Well, I'm assuming that this is the result of being able to buy the Rashee Rice suspension dip.
Sure.
So good on you for going out there and doing that. Your reward is very difficult decisions for the rest of the season. For me, I kind of like the way that this one lines up a bit more for Garrett Wilson. The matchups all around, whether it's AJ Terrell in Rashee Rice's consideration, or it is potentially Christian Gonzalez for Garrett Wilson. They're tough spots on the whole, but with Wilson's deployment in particular, he sees a bit more slot usage, and specifically Christian Gonzalez doesn't travel to the slot at quite that high of a frequency, so he should be able to avoid that more difficult matchup.
I think he'll probably end up with like Marcus Jones or Jonathan Jones or something like that, probably, if he moves into the slot there. So
yeah, if he moves into the slot, it will be Marcus Jones. Marcus Jones, who just allowed JSN to announce himself to the world last week, right? So
very undersized corner, Marcus Jones. He's just fast. That's about all he's got. So
yep.
Spoken like a man who does the wide receiver cornerback matchup report here at Fantasy Alarm. So Angie saying he won't put him in the flex because she knows. She knows.
Yeah.
DK or Waddle this week for Carlos Bob?
Ooh, I would actually err on the side of DK Metcalf in this case. This is a prime example of that ceiling being lowered for Jalen Waddle, right? He was already kind of the second banana in that passing game.
Yeah.
And now we're looking at a point where I don't think we're going to see them throw nearly as much. Skylar Thompson certainly doesn't have quite the ability to buoy an offense comparatively to Tua Tags. So would go DK in this case.
Sure. Are we starting Hunter Henry tonight? Well, Trey, it depends, I guess, what your other options are. But obviously, Hunter Henry coming off of 8 catches last week, mostly in the first half of that game. Seattle figured out, hey, we should cover this guy, and they did so in the second half. But where are you with Hunter Henry here tonight?
Yeah, I guess the true answer is starting him over whom, right? A man is only as loyal as his options. But in a vacuum, Hunter Henry is a damn fine option onto himself, right? Number 1 in the league with almost a 32% target share. Jacoby Brissett does not want to throw 2 wide receivers. Some teams like Seattle in the second half will get wise to that and focus their coverage over to Hunter Henry, but in a tight end landscape where there's really 3 or 4 guys that you like to have considerable upside, and everyone else is just kind of in this amalgam of 3 for 30 type range. Hunter Henry coming out here getting almost 8 targets a game is a huge differentiator from that tight end middle class.
Yeah. Our guy Andrew Cooper always touts, you want a guy that's a top 2 target on their offense, and right now Hunter Henry is the number 1 target on this offense here for New England. Now, is that good? It's all in the eye, I guess, right? I mean, they're not going to throw a ton, but at least they'll get the looks there. So, yeah, Trey, let us know who he would be up against in your lineup. But, yeah, I like him. We'll talk about it in a little second, but I like the good receptions prop on Hunter Henry here today. Bo Murphy, Packers. You play the Jets defense or the Raiders defense. Raiders at home this week against the Andy Dalton-led Carolina Panthers, and obviously the Jets here home versus the New England Patriots.
I would err on the side of the Jets here. Honestly, both of these spots are pretty similar in my rankings overall. I do think there's a bit more talent on the Jets side, right? Specifically when you talk about defensive and special team scoring, it's really about creating turnovers and trying to get touchdowns. And I think that the Jets, specifically their secondary, are more prone to do that.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Again, sorry stat that Jacoby Brissett faced pressure like 38% of the time last week, but Seattle only blitzed on 4 of whatever plays. Patriots offensive line is terrible. So, like, if Jacoby Brissett drops back at all, there's a good chance the Jets are going to be getting him under pressure. Pressure leads to turnovers. And I'm a Patriots fan, by the way, so I'm just very, very aware of how poorly this team can play at times. So I like the Jets tonight
Tied
here
for
as
the
well.
worst pressure rate allowed among offensive lines.
Oh yeah,
34% of
and they're
snaps, the pressure is
missing
being applied.
their starting left tackle and left guard. Now that doesn't say much because they've been terrible, but they're without two starters, City So and Vidarian Lowe tonight. So it gets even worse for the worst offensive line in football. So, and then JJ wants to know Daniels or Mayfield here.
Ooh, Baker Mayfield, the only quarterback in the league to have back-to-back 250-yard passing performances.
Yeah, what is happening there?
I think that's more a referendum on the state of offense in 2024 than anything else. For me, I almost always err on the side of the mobile guys, right? The floor is so high. We've also seen some pretty ridiculous ceiling potential out of Jaden Daniels. So that will be the way that I go against Cincinnati, but they are 3 spots apart, kind of right on that QB1, QB2 fringe overall.
Yeah, listen, Daniels led 6 scoring drives last week. It's just they all resulted in field goals. So
eventually they'll punch one in the box, and we would feel very differently about him, right?
They'll score. So, he had the 2 rushing touchdowns in week 1. So if they get down there and he's able to convert something at some point, he will throw a passing touchdown at one point. So I like Daniels. I think Coop had it. He's 3rd in fantasy points at the quarterback position while having yet to throw a passing touchdown. So again, speaks to the QB position there. So we alluded to some of our some player props here. I want to give a shout out to our friends over at Underdog. Sorry for blocking out your face. Let's do this one. There we go. Fantasarm.com/underdog. Use promo code ALARM. New users who sign up get a 50% deposit match up to $1,000, which means you deposit $2,000. They'll give you $1,000 in bonus. So can't hate that. You get a 50% deposit match up to $1,000, and you get a 99% off special pick. That usually is, a half a yard. I think tonight, or their weekly promo for this one is CD Lamb total yards set at a half. So you can include that in your plays this week, and I'll help boost your overall payout multipliers in your pick'em contests. For tonight, you were looking at some plays here. Want to get your thoughts on a couple. I wrote up our Underdog pick'em article. Coop and Bender did a segment on the Wednesday show here as well. Hunter Henry was one that Coop had picked. He did the anytime touchdown. I did the 3.5 receptions, though. What are your thoughts? 3.5 receptions for Hunter Henry in this game.
Yeah, I mean, anytime touchdown bets are always fun to sweat out, but they're also hard to bink, right? So I would definitely lean towards the reception line in particular. Hunter Henry, according to our projections over at Fantasy Alarm, is sitting at nearly 4.5 receptions. So anytime that you see that big a disparity between our projection and a betting line, usually you can feel pretty good going in the direction of that projection.
Yep, I agree with that one. Where are you tonight when it comes to the running games? Breece Hall set at 64.5 rushing yards.
Yeah, this one is actually kind of interesting. On the whole, I feel like it's a pretty sharp number overall. If I had to lean one way, I would definitely lean towards the over, because I think it's going to be a very run-oriented game plan all around. And Breece Hall is the type of player that, any of these carries, he can break for an explosive play. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see him get 16, 18, 20 touches in this game. So, it won't take but a couple of those big plays for him to get past that number.
I agree with you. So we got Breece Hall over the 64.5. We got Hunter Henry over to the 3.5 receptions. I also kind of like the kickers here today. I think there's going to be spots where, New England drives down the field and, probably gets stopped. And one thing I wrote up, Jerod Mayo has shown that he's learned from Bill Belichick is you take the points. 4th and 1, they're still sending the kicking unit out there. So you got Joey Sly, who's been really good kicking the football for them this year. They obviously had the blocked field goal, which wasn't his fault, but just the offensive line had no protection in that one. 1.5 field goals made here tonight. I like that, but Zerline on the other side as well, both at 1.5 field goals. I can see both kickers punching through 2 field goals today. What do you think?
Yeah, I could certainly see that. If I had to lean one over the other, I would lean in the direction of Joey Sly, both because of the fingerprints of Bill Belichick on this current Patriots coaching staff, but also we talk about the strength of this defense on the Jets side being their secondary, and that secondary is really able to show its teeth more effectively when they get down into the red area, right? The field gets shorter, things get more compressed, and the skill set or the skill gap with those secondary players really shows itself. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if we see several series where New England is moving the ball fairly effectively down the field, and then all of a sudden they hit that brick wall in the red zone and it converts for a field goal.
Yeah, I agree 100% with you. So, guys, again, go check out Underdog right now. Use promo code ALARM when you go to fantasyalarm.com/underdog. New users who sign up get a 50% deposit match up to $1,000 plus a 99% off special pick. You can include that in your first entry to help boost your payout there. And again, you can go check out all of our Underdog articles over on Fantasy Alarm as well. Get your free picks of the day included over there and, help you guys win some money. They also have some really cool battle royal contests if you're tired of, your salary cap style DFS contests that you see over on other DFS sites. They do snake drafts for their battle royals, which are pretty fun. Usually it's like 6 teams. You pick out a quarterback, 2 running backs, a combination of 3 wide receivers or 2 wide receivers, and a tight end there. So a new way to experience DFS. And if you're in on the Pick'em contest, you can find that over on Underdog as well. So fantasy.com/underdog right there. Going back to your questions here, JJ wants to know Pitts or Kincaid here for tonight.
Those are literally right next to each other on my rankings. I'm gonna lean towards Dalton Kincaid here. Apart from the 2-minute offense for the Falcons, we haven't really seen Kirk Cousins be able to effectively run and orchestrate this offense. So I've still got a bit of concern about his ability to distribute the ball to his receivers collectively and to keep the ball moving against above average Chiefs defense. So I'll go with Kincaid for the Bills here.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's fine. Again, we've seen – I was obviously a bit more encouraged. We always talk about, like, the overreactions to what we see in week 1, and everybody saw Kirk Cousins in week 1, like, oh, my God, this guy can't move. He can't throw off his – can't take a step forward and throw. What are we to expect, from this offense moving forward? And then, of course, they go out and look perfectly fine on Monday Night Football. He kind of even breaks his his primetime struggle streak, and they get a win in Philadelphia, and all is good there. So Ralph wants to know Hunter Henry tonight or wait for Ferguson or Gesicki. Ferguson got a limited practice participation after that knee injury last week, and then his fallback plan would obviously be Gesicki if Ferguson ruled out. How would you rate these guys?
I would err on the side of caution and in turn floor. I would actually go Hunter Henry tonight. I've got him ahead of all of the highest of all of these 3 tight ends, and you're also rolling the dice with Ferguson's availability overall in what looks to be a fairly tough matchup in its own right. So I'll go with the bird in the hand and Hunter Henry in Thursday night.
And even if Ferguson was active, you don't know if he's going to play the full snap load. Like he's coming off that knee, so there's just a lot of risk there. Carlos wants to know Kyler Murray or Anthony Richardson here this week. I like Kyler; it's a really great matchup for him. But where do you have those 2 ranked?
I'm right there with you. I've got Kyler ahead of Anthony Richardson. As we expected heading into the 2024 season, the highs for Anthony Richardson are beautifully high, but the lows are pretty ugly as well.
When you can't throw the football, that tends to happen, right? Like
and unless you're just going to connect on 30-yard plus bombs all day long, it's kind of ugly watching the passing game for the Colts this year. Whereas Kyler, he's got arguably as high an upside, maybe just a notch or 2 down as a runner relative to Anthony Richardson, but his floor is so much higher, right? He can obviously do stuff with his legs. This offense really seems to be coming into its own. They've obviously got a whole slew of weapons available to him, certainly more so than when we saw in his early days in the league.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously, all the worries again about Marvin Harrison Jr. after week 1. No problem right away. You just hit those home run plays. You're like, this guy was the number 4 pick.
I thought he was slow.
Yeah,
he couldn't separate. What happened?
4 overall pick, no problem there. And Kyler averaging, just under 60 yards rushing a game right now. Just kind of add to all of that. Richardson, Geno, or Darnold, maybe a little bit of a tougher conversation because of the rushing upside that Anthony Richardson brings to the table. But where do you sit with these 3?
Yeah, with those three, I would err on the side of Anthony Richardson, right? Looking back to last week in particular, right? Like it was about as bad as it could be for Anthony Richardson for the vast majority of the game. But then, in that last drive, heading towards the end of the game, starts running the ball a bit more, starts getting a little bit more points accumulated, and all told, turns in a 13, 14 point effort on what was categorically a horrendous day, 3 interception days. So that really illustrates how far that rushing floor can go. And look, the upside potential that he has is undeniably in a
Yeah.
different territory than what Geno or Darnold have to bring to the table.
I don't mean to interrupt the football show in news, but Shohei Ohtani just hit his 3rd home run of the day, and he's got 10 RBIs now. So he joined the 50-50 club in style. First ever player to go 50-50 in a season. 3 homers, 10 RBIs, and 2 stolen bases today. Quite a day. I wonder if he can play football. You think Shohei Ohtani can play football? Probably, right?
Just a standard Shohei Ohtani dub
just a
on
standard
a
Shohei
Thursday
Ohtani
afternoon.
day there. All right, let's get a little showdown lineup build. We haven't done this yet on the show, but we do talk showdown lineups. I know you all play showdown contests here, so how would you begin a showdown build tonight if you're looking at your captain spot?
Yeah, like I've said a few times over now, generally looking for the player that has the highest likelihood of scoring the most points in that captain spot.
Sure.
So that really narrows the field down to the 2 running backs for me, Breece Hall and Ramondre Stevenson. Those are obviously going to be the 2 most popular captain options. Right. I think if you're looking for some contrarian ways to fill that captain spot, Garrett Wilson is a bit interesting. Also, Aaron Rodgers is a little bit interesting as well, right? He's heading back to prime time.
Yeah.
There's kind of the the boogeymen of the Patriots going against these New York Jets that you might want to try to exercise.
Sure.
Ultimately his ceiling as a quarterback is still fairly high among the top 2 or 3 on any given slate. And we haven't really seen him reach it. So because of that, I don't think he's going to be all that popular if you're trying to try to take down a large field tournament.
Sure.
Aaron Rodgers might be an interesting.
I'm fine. Let's see if we do a little Rodgers here. I don't know. Can we get both running backs? They're still, even as flex players, they're super expensive. And knock us down to $3,900. Do we have any free players down here?
Yeah, I don't know if we have any super savers today. It might actually be difficult to stack all.
Even Austin Hooper's up there. 2,400. That's not even really
that's cheap. Not saving you any real money,
really saving
right?
us any money. All right, so let's pick one. If you had to get rid of a Breece Hall or Ramondre Stevenson tonight,
I would pass. I don't want to get rid of either of these. I guess of the 2, I would probably let Ramondre Stevenson go.
Okay.
This is a bit more of a game theory or game script kind of play, right? If Aaron Rodgers is having a day to justify being rostered as our captain, it's probably because New England is scoring a bit more and maybe moving the ball through the air a bit more. So if that game script comes to pass, then Stevenson might be the one that is kind of left on the outside looking in.
All right, so we got Rodgers, Hall. I plugged in Henry because we were both kind of high on him. Then the kicker with Joey Sly, figuring that the Patriots going to score any points, that could be a way to go here. So that would be $5,300 again. They kill you with the captain spot, man. There's so much money being spent on that. So $5,300 for 2 players. You're kind of, I guess, diving into some of these Patriots guys. KJ Osborne, Antonio Gibson broke off a nice run. He had 11 for 96 last week. If you want to not go Stevenson, but go Antonio Gibson, or Jalen Polk caught his first touchdown last week. What would you suggest we do here in the mid tier?
Yeah, I kind of like how this one sets up for Polk a little bit. Specifically from a pricing standpoint, I believe he's 4K flat if memory serves.
Yeah.
And we should be able to see him, get into the slot a little bit and avoid some of those more difficult outs on the perimeter of the Jets defense. But also, Sauce Gardner, as he's developed into more and more of a ball hawk, he's also been prone to, kind of jumping around and letting a guy get past him a little bit. So, definitely some upside with that play. We're also expecting him to see a bit more run this week with Ty Thornton out of the mix as well. So
Yeah.
might be able to cash in on him from like a points per dollar standpoint as well.
That leaves us with $6,600, so we can kind of play the likes of Mike Williams, Alan Lazard, Jets defense. Braylon Allen obviously looked pretty good last week. We got Zerline. Got any leans towards this group here? I feel like if we're doing Rodgers, we almost should have a pass catcher, right?
Yeah. I mean, it would definitely be between Williams and Lazard for me.
Mike Honestly, Williams did get 65% of offensive snaps last week, so that's
a big jump for him. That's specifically what I'm pulling up here, right? Like it was his 2024 season opened with a whimper, but he jumped from 18% of snaps in week 1 all the way up to 65% last week.
Yeah.
So if he's going to be on the field, right, like he certainly has that that big frame kind of jump ball profile that is very familiar to the Aaron Rodgers fans out there, right?
Yeah,
he definitely has not been shy about throwing 50-50 balls into the end zone, and if Williams is going to be out there, he's certainly got the skill set to potentially win that jump ball.
Yeah, ran 37 routes, 65% of snaps. Only saw one target in that game. Again, they got a lot of checkdowns to the running backs for Aaron Rodgers in that one. Breece Hall had 8 targets. Garrett Wilson had 6. Braylon Allen had 4. Alan Lazard saw 4. He was the number 2 receiver in terms of targets there. But you have to assume if Mike Williams is going to be playing those many snaps, that there's going to be more looks possibly going his way there. So, guys, just kind of like an example lineup. If you can play around with it, again, if you went Patriots in your captain spot, maybe like you liked Hunter Henry as your captain in this one because, you think he's going to be the one guy that can save you some more money. You can get Ramondre Stevenson in there as well and do the double backs that we talked about and not play any quarterbacks. Maybe the quarterbacks don't throw many touchdowns in this game or something like that. So different ways to go about building your lineups here. Just kind of an example of what you can do over on DraftKings for tonight's showdown slate. A few more questions popping up in the chat here. Should we be worried about DK Metcalf? He's his wide receiver 1 this week.
I wouldn't be overly worried, right? We'll obviously get more reporting as the week goes on, and he's on the very short list of players for me to where I almost kind of dilute tough matchups for him. He's got the size speed combo and the raw athleticism to really win against almost every cornerback in the league, right? So the issue that I would have if I was going to raise one about DK is a bit more game script dependent, right? I think we're going to see Miami running the ball a lot, and Seattle might in turn follow suit. But in terms of his availability and his ability to win when he's on the field, not particularly concerned at this point.
Yeah, I agree with you. Chris wants to know, would you put a kicker in? I would. I think you could probably play both kickers tonight. I do. I think this is a game where both kickers have a chance to put up some points. We like them both for the field goal props here tonight. So you really want to save some money tonight. Plug in both kickers, and you could probably build whatever lineup you want at that point. I'll say this, though. On this slate, I think DraftKings and FanDuel kind of know as well. The kickers are a bit more expensive than they usually are, right? Like Zerline's $5K and Polk's Sly's $4,800. Kickers are usually like $4K and under, so they got to know that they're going to be the ones in your lineups here. Would you kicker captain tonight? Would you consider it?
I would not.
It would have won you on opening night with Moody there, when he had the 6 field goals.
Yeah. I mean, I say that, right? And I'm usually one to talk down the impact of kickers, but 2024 has something else to say for me in that regard. It has been the year of the kicker so far, but historically, it's really hard to hit the upside that you're looking for with your captain by having a kicker in there. If we're talking about double ups or cash games, it's much more viable in that case.
Yeah, I always like throwing defenses in there right away because you have the 1.5 and they start with 10, so you're immediately above everybody else, right? So you're
tied for little front running, right? Just feeling good heading into the first quarter.
Screenshots, you in first place there, just kind of. But tonight, you could play Jets defense in your captain tonight or something, and maybe get some, some defensive touchdowns or or who knows? Maybe that'd be the chalk or the the way to win. The Joker wants to know Jets defense or Bears defense.
I'm leaning the Bears defense here. I am very bullish on the Bears defense as a whole. Right, we saw them, especially down the stretch run, really start to limit and slow down the Texans offense a bit. And they've got several playmakers on that defense. And like we talked about earlier, Anthony Richardson is fresh off of a 3 interception game. He's also been known to not have the best ball security as a runner either. So defense for me is typically chasing turnovers, and I think that the Bears have a better chance of turning the ball over.
Yeah, the Bears defense is surprised this year, or maybe they shouldn't have, but they've looked pretty good in their games here so far. And then Purdy or Mayfield here at quarterback.
Ooh, in this case, I'll go Mayfield. I have him a full 1 spot ahead of Brock Purdy. So kind of splitting hairs here, but with the depleted weapons that Brock Purdy has around him, I think we're going to see a lot of the ground game for San Francisco. We talked about Jordan Mason earlier in the show.
Yeah.
So that's just enough to slide Purdy behind Baker Mayfield in my rankings.
Yeah, I agree. Again, you're looking at this matchup for Purdy as well. Like if he doesn't have Kittle, it's just Brandon Ayuk. You're on Jennings again, and Jennings has proven to be very, a pretty solid play whenever he's needed to kind of step up, and fill a void. But the more you look at that offense, the more you think about them looking just to run the football here this week. With Jordan Mason and with the way he's been handling those duties there. I mean, they're not throwing to him, but they're not giving anybody else really any touches. And Deebo Samuel was sort of their backup running back, at times, and now he's not even active. So. We might be looking at another 25 plus carries here out of Jordan Mason, or if you want to be different in DFS, maybe they finally put Garundo in there to get some actual work because they can't just feed. They could, I guess, Mason all the 35 carries in this game, but Mayfield has a bit of the tougher matchup in terms of the cornerback perspective there in his matchup, but still elite wide receivers with Evans and Godwin there. So. Guys, again, if you have any more questions, you can throw them in the chat. Otherwise, we're going to go watch some Thursday Night Football here. We got another half an hour-ish until that game kicks off. Eric, any key thoughts, takeaways? You've been working on the wide receiver cornerback matchup report. What's your favorite matchup to target this week when it comes to wide receivers and quarterbacks?
Yeah, I'll keep going back to the well of players facing off against the Washington Commanders.
Sure.
So this week that is Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. Obviously, if you have Jamar Chase anywhere, you are largely starting him. But he should see a fair amount of Benjamin St-Juste, the player that was seen giving chase on many of Malik Neighbors' explosive plays from last week. And just generally speaking, has a bit of a history as a turnstile out there. So that's certainly one that jumps out to me. Secondarily, I love attacking rookie cornerbacks heading into the season. Terrion Arnold is definitely a big upgrade. He'll probably see the most of Michael Wilson out there, who isn't exactly firmly on the fantasy radar, but from a DFS standpoint, in a game that should be popular, he's an interesting way to get into that game. And also, Terrion Arnold is certainly not at a point where he's shadowing yet. So Maserati Marv will have his fair share of snaps in his coverage, and I think he'll be able to take advantage of it.
Yeah, I did. I recorded the DFS show with Howard Bender today. That's over live on the Fantasy Alarm YouTube channel. You can check that out. He liked Greg Dortch as well. Slot receivers have just kind of been the ones to do the damage. Now, the 2 slot receivers the Lions have faced so far have been Cooper Kupp and Chris Godwin. Much more talent, we think, obviously, than Greg Dortch. But if there's a leak at slot corner for the Lions, he did have 11 targets in week 1. Kyler Murray not shy to potentially target that matchup. Dortch in DFS is a pretty decent value. Would you venture to include him maybe as a flex play this week in lineups if you're looking to fill that spot?
Yeah, certainly. Right. He's clearly their slot receiver, but he's only playing about 2/3 of his snaps in the slot, so he'll be able to get out onto the perimeter and take advantage of some of those matchups against Arnold and to a lesser extent against Davis. But Robertson in his own right is just kind of middle of the pack in terms of his PFF coverage rating. So certainly a player that is not immune to
Sure.
having, or rather giving up some production against them.
What do we make of this Eagles secondary? Obviously, they gave up big plays at the end of that game last week. Darnell Mooney burned them twice. Now they go in a matchup against New Orleans. They got to deal with Chris Olave, but Rashid Shaheed's been the one. Back-to-back weeks, big plays, big touchdown plays. Is that something you think that he can continue this week?
Potentially. What's interesting about Rashid Shaheed is he was shadowed by Trayvon Diggs last week. Trayvon Diggs doesn't shadow a ton, so it's kind of interesting that he was able to have this big game all told. But if you take a closer look at it, almost all of that production was outside of Trayvon Diggs' coverage. I think Diggs let him catch one ball for 35 or 40 yards, something to that effect. So the fact that he's out there finding a way to be productive even when he has this tough matchup, I think is really an indication of how much confidence that this coaching staff and to a secondary degree Derek Carr has in Rashid Shaheed. So I think he's certainly here to stay overall. And this matchup is actually pretty appealing, right? Like Darius Slay is still, the marquee name in this Eagles secondary, but he's not the Darius Slay of old, right? Like he's allowed 100% catch rate so far. All 6 of the targets thrown in his coverage have been hauled in. Does a pretty good job of keeping it in front of him still, right around 10 yards per reception. That's perfectly fine for an outside receiver. But he's also given up a touchdown in just 2 games. So definitely not the the big play Slay that we came up to know. Right. And he's really kind of the most challenging of the defenders in that Philadelphia secondary.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, again, we've just seen them back-to-back weeks, give up plays where, by sort of name values you mentioned, you look at the depth chart there in Philadelphia and you think their defense, should hold up and be one of the better units, getting turnovers, pressuring the quarterback, and you just haven't really seen that yet. The other matchup I want to ask you about and your thoughts here, Cleveland's at home this week. They have a pretty good matchup themselves. Jerome Ford, the lead running back, but Donta Foreman out-touched him last week in terms of carries. Is that something that you're concerned about? Do you think that it's more of a timeshare at the position? What's your take here on Cleveland Browns offense at home this week and their spot?
Yeah, I'm not particularly concerned about that that revelation quite yet, right? I think one week can certainly be an outlier. Jerome Ford has shown to be fairly effective with the ball in his hand. It could just be as simple as the sort of hot hand madness that we see coaches roll out there before. If we get to a point where this week Donta Foreman is now out touching Jerome Ford again, if we see his snap percentage or his snap share start to surpass him, then obviously that's a bit more of a trend that we can track and project forward with. But for now, I'm kind of chalking it up as a 1 week outlier. I do think Foreman did enough with those touches to earn a bit of a larger role than most of us were projecting, but not to the point where I think he'll be on the better side of the split anytime soon.
Yeah, I think he might be a touchdown vulture maybe this week against the Giants if you're looking for a cheap and very contrarian, obviously, DFS play there. So, guys, we do appreciate you all tuning in with us here again. Thursday Night Football, Week 3 kicks off here tonight. Jets, Patriots, kind of giving a quick overview of what we talked about earlier in the show. We like the under on this one tonight, 38.5. We're looking at the Patriots plus 6.5, a closely contested divisional matchup here between New England and New York. Eric, any final thoughts here tonight?
Yeah, just even though some of these Thursday night games are a bit low scoring affairs, it is categorically the best way to kick off your weekend. So I'm out here tailing those picks that we talked through on Underdog. I went and got my card filed in, so I'll be sweating that out. Going to hammer out a few more showdown lineups before kickoff here, and like John said, we're soon to end the live stream, but drop us a question on Twitter in the Fantasy Alarm Discord. We're happy to answer them as we get a little bit closer to kickoff.
Yep. And if you're not yet a member of the Fantasy Alarm family, you can scan that QR code right there. We have a 7-day free trial going on still. FantasyAlarm.com/win. If you enter promo code Let's Go when you sign up, your first month after that 7-day free trial is just $19.98. Get access to all of our premium content on site, including our playbooks, access to our premium Discord for all sports too, not just the NFL, but your 7-day free trial gets you through obviously this week and till next week there. So no better time than now to come join the Fantasy Alarm family. Get all the great content there, including Eric's wide receiver cornerback matchup report, my DFS playbook dartboard, and quarterback coach. I'm even filling in at the wide receiver coach this week for Colby Conway, but he usually has that out during the week. So you can check out all of our DFS content over at Fantasy Alarm. If you got to go all pro with us, fantasyalarm.com/win, promo code Let's Go. Get that 7-day free trial and come join the family. Good luck, everybody, here to start off week 3. I'll be back live Sunday morning, 11 a.m. with Andrew Cooper to get you guys ready for NFL Sunday. Till then,